Welcome back to Living Through the Shift podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany J. Harris. And before we get started, I wanted to give a special thanks to the Russell Hotel in Nashville, Tennessee. And I also want to give a special thank you to the producer of this podcast, Drew Davis, who is the founder of Clean Comedy Collective. So if you're looking for clean comedy shows in Nashville, you should definitely go check him out. So today we are going to have a check-in episode, and we're going to talk a little bit about, what's been going on in my life. And we're also going to talk a lot about the previous episode, my episode with my friend Lydia Leiker, and some really great things that I got from it. If you haven't gotten a chance to go look at it, I definitely suggest you go take a listen. It was a very great episode. It's really vulnerable, and especially for those of us who are going through this and we feel like we're the only ones who are going through this, you're definitely not alone. So I'm going to start off with a joke. And if anyone has met my mom, she's very sweet right now. And whenever my mom is thirsty, she always says, I want a drink. And she always says, I want a cold one. I want a drink. So recently she was in the hospital and she kept saying, I want a drink. And when I came in, the nurse, she said, she keeps asking for a drink. And I said, okay. And the nurse says, how long has she been an alcoholic? And I said, and before I could really go into it and explain why she keeps saying this, she's like, because I've been in recovery for a really long time. And she goes into this like very long story into, like her being sober. And I just kept thinking, like, please don't pull out your chip. Please don't pull out your chip. Please don't pull out your chip. And then she goes back to me and she says, how long has your mom been an alcoholic? And I was like, oh, it's been, it's really new. It's really new. It just started, and we've just been trying to, but just give her a Coke with some ice, and she won't even know that there's no rum in it. So yeah, apparently people think my mom's an alcoholic, but really she's just thirsty because she literally wants a drink. So I'm working on that joke. But if you all know too, I do stand-up comedy and try and do it around Nashville, but I can't do as much with caregiving. But you can see a little bit, and if you ever want to go like to Bellevue or something, there's a lot of clean shows. But on Wednesdays, Why Not Wednesday, my friend Rhonda Sweat, she does a show there as well. So if you're always looking for some laughs, definitely go check it out. I wanted to talk a lot about what happened last week, what's been going on with my life. So my mom, she's been in the hospital. She's out of the hospital now. We're transitioning, her back to the house. And that's been a really interesting and stressful and overwhelming situation for me. But I've been trying to continue doing the podcast. And my friend Lydia Leiker came on a couple weeks ago, and it was really great to hear her story. She talked about her and her husband, Dick, and their love story. And it was just really sweet just hearing about, their love story, how they've been together for over 20 years. And also how, they started off dating and then now she's kind of turned into her husband's caregiver. And I know we all say for better or for worse. And that is kind of where she is right now. She's kind of in what we talked about before was we're in this waiting room. And sometimes the waiting room isn't fun. It's full of like a lot of anxiety and things like that. But she has some really awesome tidbits. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that we talked about today. One of the top tips that I got is get an accountability partner. So Lydia became my accountability partner. She literally told me, I think about back in February, because I had become so overwhelmed with my mom's care. She was going to Sunny Day about 3 days a week, and then the other 2 days she was just at the house, and I just didn't know what to do with her. And I felt like she needs some type of structure. She needs some type of care. And she said, I'm going to be your accountability partner, and I'm going to help you find someone who is going to be able to help you. So she suggested a local daycare program. And she says, and I know the owner and the founder, and I've worked there with them specifically, and they're amazing. And I started sending my mom there about a month later, and it was just the perfect thing. And when I say accountability partner, it could be your best friend, but I feel like a lot of us like to throw out that term a lot when we say accountability partner. I'll say it like this. The first time I really wanted to lose weight, I remember thinking like all my friends want to have like similar goals as me because we all want to be healthy. And I remember saying, hey, you guys, let's all be accountability partners. Let's all go to the gym together, whatnot. And I remember all my friends would say, like, we want to go to brunch. We want to go get a burger. And I realized, okay, like, I don't think people want to support me in this endeavor. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't. It's just, that's just not what they want. But especially when you're a caregiver, sometimes it's hard to have an accountability partner with someone who's not even going through this, or they haven't even been through something like this. That's not even where they're at right now. So if you are, financially, you're like, oh, I'm in debt, I'm trying to get better. And then you have a friend who, maybe they've never had to deal with finances before. They might not want to be your accountability partner because that's just something that they've never really understood. But for someone who's an accountability partner, that does not necessarily mean that you both have to be on the same level. Because I feel like for me and Lydia, and we talk about this, and especially when I first started going, people would point out my age. They're like, they would feel so bad for me because I was younger than them. And they would say, like, oh my gosh, we feel so bad for you because, you're in your 30s and you should be like going out and like dating and just having, regular 30-year-old experiences. And that doesn't mean that because you're younger, that doesn't mean that you can't give someone else support or you haven't been in a similar situation. So I worked in social services for over 10 years. So I have something to be able to help people in my support group, even though I'm not really going through the same, stages of dementia that maybe they're in. There's still things that I can do. Or like maybe I have, background in nonprofit organization, or maybe it's, hey, I'm really good at building community. Hey, you guys, let's go do a comedy show together and we're going to get everyone together. And that's what I did. So there's different things that you can do to be a really great accountability partner. So I remember, telling her, like, these are some of the things I really want to work on, with my organization, with moving and things like that. And that was just something that, she just listened to me, or she was able to give me, some type of instruction to say, like, this is who you should reach out to. And I think when a lot of people feel like, if they're listening right now, maybe you're saying, I'm not a caregiver, I'm a friend of a caregiver, I'm listening to this podcast because my friend is going through the same thing. I think this is a great way to say, okay, if you have a resume, you can be accountability partner. You have skills. So you have to take your resume and you have to sell yourself to, unfortunately, like the nice way of saying it, but you just have to say, like, hey, this is what I'm really good at and this is why I want this job. And you can take the exact same thing and replicate that for your friends or for your community or whoever you're trying to help. So if, you're really great with finances, or you're really great with organization and you really want to help, that is something that you can really do. Or if you're really good at saying, hey, like, I really just love sitting with people. There are some people that they really love just sitting with people. They love being a companion and they are so great at that work. There's people who will just say, like, hey, I'll just come over and like sit with your mom and you can like go do whatever you need to do. And there's people who will do that. And that is how you can help someone be an accountability partner. So we talked about that. And especially in our support groups, an accountability partner, we are supporting each other. So if you've never been to a support group, if you've never been to, it used to be Monday ladies night group until we got a few guys in there. It's a really magical place where we really just share each other's wins and we really support each other through this process. We are a partner through the whole thing, from the beginning till the end and to after. And as you further listen to this podcast, you'll see people who have gone through the process of taking care of their loved ones and what's that like when it's over, unfortunately, and the beauty and that there's hope, after heartbreak. That's definitely something that I really got from the podcast, was that we are really here with each other. And I remember this particular point where she said, I'm afraid that no one's going to be with me after this. And the thing about our support group is that we have a lot of people who, they've lost their loved one and they still come back because it is such a supportive network and people have seen you from the beginning. When I first came, I was lost. I was a mess. My mom had just gotten diagnosed and I just find myself like sobbing in front of, women that I've never met before. And I'm kind of like, hi, I've never met you before. Let me like cry and tell you my mini life story. And it was okay. It was a safe space. And I think we kind of throw out that word a lot, what a safe space is, but especially if you go to like a real support group, it is a safe space, and no one's going to sit there and say like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe she cried," or something like that, because I know that I grew up with my parents where, they just don't understand tears. It's just not a thing. Like, tears, I don't know, maybe it's sweat leaving your eyes, I don't know. But for me, it's like I'm overwhelmed. It's a lot, and I don't really know how to express my feelings. So the only thing that I can do is sob, and I'm an emotional person. So I would definitely go back and look at that. So then secondly, she talked about finding the green lights. So especially in when you are anyone's, caregiver, but especially for her, she's been married to her husband, and that I know that that was something that they definitely didn't expect, and that was something that wasn't really discussed. I think we really just want to live in these really good moments, and unfortunately they started to realize that this is going to change. And I said, how do you have hope? And she said, I look for the green lights. And that is, maybe today I can hold his hand, or maybe today I can give him a kiss, because if you are a caregiver, your loved one, sometimes they might think that you're someone else. And that can be really hard. And sometimes, people, I think for even me, I have to like compartmentalize it. But, maybe after 50 times, it kind of gets to me in the middle of Kroger. And I'm kind of like, why am I like upset? I have no idea. But it's finding the green lights. So for me, I got a Whirly Pop, a Whirly, yeah, it's like the Whirly Pop popcorn maker, and it's making popcorn with my mom. Not every night, but maybe after the cleaning lady came and I was able to make some popcorn on the stove, and we could just sit on the stove and sit in the kitchen or sit on the couch and just chill. Not sit on the stove. No, we're not cooking, but we can sit, you know, and eat popcorn and enjoy the night. That's like the best part, is you're enjoying the green lights. And I understand it because it can be really frustrating, especially for people who say stuff like count your blessings, like you should be grateful, and this is a struggle. So it's really hard for you to say, it's hard for me to be um excited about this, or grateful for this moment, because maybe you've been financially screwed, maybe you've been emotionally screwed, maybe you've lost friends, maybe it, like, whoever you thought you were, it's a completely different person. That is hard to tackle. So I'll say the green lights are the smallest forms of, like, I'm not telling you be like the greatest, like be the most grateful. I think literally one day I wrote like, thank God for pancakes, because it was a day that it was a good day, and we just made, if anyone knows me, when I try to be gluten free, we made gluten free pancakes, and I was killing it. I was like, we made blueberry gluten free pancakes, and it looked amazing, and we put it on really nice plates, and I was like, wow, that was a good day. That was a good day. Even if it's like the smallest thing, even if it was just a good moment, it was a good moment. And I know I do a lot of Sex and the City references, but I remember this one part, and I think it had to be like the first movie. And they asked Charlotte, was she happy in her marriage? And she said, every day. And they said, every day? And she said, not all day, every day, but every day. And I feel like if we can try and find a green light, not all day, every day, but just every day, one green light, not like something ridiculously like we're grateful for, oh, I'm grateful for like my car that is on its last leg. No, no, no. I mean, I'm grateful for cheese. I'm really happy that like I went into, to get a sandwich, and the register was down. They were like, here, you can have the sandwich and a cookie. Like things like that. Very, very minimal things, because when we find the green lights, especially and if you can find the green light with your loved one, that's even better, but sometimes you're not with your loved one every day, because maybe you are not with them 100%. Maybe they're in a place. So like trying to find the green light so that you stay sane, because when you're around people who are in a completely different season as you, it's really easy to get caught up in the comparison trap, and it can make you go crazy. And then also, I will say, number 3, you're not failing. So we talked a lot about this, and it's this idea of, especially if you have someone who has dementia or neurodegenerative disease, you constantly will see them decline, and you feel like the decline is yourself. And I'll say for myself, I used to feel like, oh my gosh, like it's me, I did this, like that's why she's declining. No, that's the disease. And if you go to a support group, particularly a dementia support group, you will start to see people say things like, it's not you, it's the disease. You're doing a great job. You are not failing. It worked. And this is Cheryl, like Cheryl Blanchard will say this, and she'll say, you you didn't fail. It worked for a really long time. And now we have to find something else. But that doesn't mean that you are failing. It just means it didn't work right now. It's not working right now. And that doesn't mean it might not work later. And you'll get to meet Cheryl. She's the regional director for Middle Tennessee, for Alzheimer's Tennessee. But we do talk a lot about that, is that, just this idea of it's not working. Why isn't this working? And especially for me, I find myself constantly like comparing myself, to others, being like, oh my gosh, like I'm failing. Why is she not doing this? She's doing all this stuff, and why can't you be like this? And that's just, unfortunately, this is just the season that I am. I did not choose this season. I still have not understood why God has chosen this for me. But anyways, you're not failing, and you're not a failure. You're doing a really great job keeping someone alive. It is really hard to, one, show up and make this decision to be a caregiver or a care partner, or, someone who's like, I want to be a part of your tribe. It's really a big decision. So the fact that you showed up, when they say like showing up is just the half of it, the fact that you showed up it's really hard. It's really hard. So give yourself a pat on the back, because the amount of providers who come up to me who say like, wow, you're such a great daughter. Wow, I hope that when I get older, my kids take care of me, like that. And one, to that, I'll say thank you so much. That's very sweet. And two, when people say, oh, like, I hope, I guess, segue, I hope my kids take care of me. I think to that, I say, you might not get in this place. If you take care of yourself, you might not need help, as much. But I think that's something that I've learned through this. My mom says it a lot. She's always like, I want to go back to school. I want to go back to school. And I think to her, that's this idea of, I failed because I did not finish. I think she had like one more class or something like that, and she just didn't submit the paper, so she's basically done. But that's still in her head of like, I failed. I didn't accomplish this. And I find myself like ruminating, constantly thinking like, oh, I'm a failure. I should have done this. Oh, I'm a failure. I should have done that. And no, like we're not. We're not failures. We showed up. We are here. And unfortunately, I'm still working on that with myself, but the only thing we can do is go forward. So you are doing an amazing job. And the fact that you showed up is like more than that, because you will find so many providers and so many doctors who will say there's so many kids who don't show up. There's so many people who don't show up because, which is fine. Maybe they're caught up in their grief, or they're caught up in their anger or whatnot, but they don't show up. They don't want to show up for their loved one. They don't want to do this. It is a hard job. And also, it's not a paid job. So you don't get paid, especially in Tennessee generally, because a lot of us, unfortunately, make over, in this case, we make too much money and not that much. So in those cases, you're not going to get paid because you don't group for Medicaid. So Medicaid is not going to pay you. Tennessee has not expanded Medicaid. I'm from Illinois, so it's a little bit different. You're doing a really great job. You're figuring it out. You're a project manager, you don't even know. You're a fiscal manager, you don't even know it. You're an organizer, you don't even know it. You are, you're a great communicator. You're an executive assistant. You're doing all these jobs and you're not even getting paid for it. And no one's telling you you're doing amazing. And you feel like you're failing because they just happen to have like a bad day or something like that. That does not happen to be your fault. That's like not their fault or that's no one's fault. That's just a disease. And then 4, building your team. So in support group, we talked about this. Lydia talked a lot about this, is that we are building our team. So in this season, yeah, you're definitely going to need your like, I want to have fun friends. And you're definitely going to need people who want to have these existential crises conversations, unfortunately, because you're probably going to be thinking to yourself, oh, like I have more depth to myself. And I really wish I didn't think about those things, because I feel like the things that I don't want to go to the club. It's hot. It is hot, and I don't even drink, and the drinks cost too much, and we could just be doing this outside, and we could be having like a real conversation. But your team is an authentic part, and it doesn't necessarily, and your team also doesn't encompass just your friends, right? Your team is, how can you make your life easier? So if right now, I don't know what stage you're in, or if you're like, I'm not even in those phases. This is the moment that you start to say, how can I make my life easier? So my cousin, Lovely, gave me, she's like, I can't come and help you, but I can give you a cleaning lady. So she got someone to come and clean the house once a month. And then I said, oh, I just said, like a couple weeks ago, I said, I'm going to bump it up to a month, because my friend's like, why don't you have them come in more? And I was like, oh yeah, I just feel bad for that. No, you're building a team, someone to make your life easier, because you are doing a lot trying to take care of them. And when your house is clean, especially for someone with dementia, they hate clutter. So my mom was like a very cluttered person. And then now all of a sudden she doesn't like clutter. And I have ADHD. So it's just like, okay, God, I get it. That's something that you're working on me with. Thank you. But this is where you start to say, do I really have to do that? And we talk a lot about that in these things of, do I really have to do that, or do I feel guilty, or is there some type of sense of like, I have to be there to do that? And no, you don't. Like, sometimes I think I felt like, oh, when she goes to this program, I have to be there every single day, and I have to make her a really perfect lunch, and I have to do all this stuff. No, I don't. The past couple weeks, it's been crazy. So she got out of the hospital, and I said, like, you're going to eat with everyone else. And she said, I don't get a lunch. And I'm like, you're going to be fine. You're going to be just fine. And it's okay. But I made her lunch today, and that was fine. I said, you get 3 lunches homemade by me, and the other 2 days you may or may not. It's been a crazy week. But that doesn't mean you love them any less. So how can you make your life easier? And I know that everyone's finances are different. So even like having a cleaning person, that can be, I know that for me, I was like, wow, that's like such a thing of privilege for me to even say. But for some people, what are some things that you feel like you don't have to do? Do you have to pick them up, or do you think the caregiver can pick them up? I started to say, oh, the caregiver picks her up she comes to the house at this time, and that's the same time that she gets out. Why don't I just let her pick them up so that I don't have to do that? And that takes stress out of my schedule, and I don't have to be there. I don't have to do all those things. And I think the thing is, especially if you are someone's primary caregiver and you're the one who's like always there, they're going to be okay. They know you're coming back. I know sometimes there's like a little bit of fear, and especially, for my mom, she always thinks like, "Oh no, like I thought you weren't coming." I'm coming back. I am coming back. Don't worry. I'm still here. But even in that sense of, who's coming back for you? So who's coming back to take care of you? And I think that's the question that you have to ask yourself, is how can I come back for myself, and how can I make things easier for myself? So maybe that is like, oh, I can't afford a cleaning person. Like I can assign this out of my parents' funds to pay for this, or like my friends have suggested, like maybe you should get someone to cook for you all, to like meal prep, not like meal prep, but food prep. Maybe they can prep your proteins, prep your vegetables, or something like that. Or maybe there's things that you like to do that you're like, I love cooking, but I don't like cleaning. Or I like cleaning, but I don't like doing errands. Find someone who can do that. And it does not have to be someone in your friend group. And I'll say this because unfortunately, the tribe costs money now. It does. Gas costs money. People don't always do stuff for free, unfortunately. But I will say, when you have a support group, you would be really surprised to find people who are really excited to help you, especially like in the churches. Like the church ladies will be like, oh, I'll sit with her. So you would be surprised, but also be ready to let that go, let that responsibility go. It might be uncomfortable for a while. It's kind of like, letting your kid go off to preschool are they going to be okay? They're going to be fine. They're going to be just fine. They're going to be okay. And building the team for yourself, for who you need now and later. So when they're here And unfortunately, when they're not here, because I have to think about that. And I have to think, what type of support do I need right now in this moment? And also, what type of support do I need towards the end? And when my mom is not here, like, knock on wood. But unfortunately, those are things that we have to think about. And lastly, you are a baddie, okay? And if I have a suburban woman on there, she's like, what is a baddie? You are a bad bitch. Okay, excuse my French, but you are. You're doing an amazing job, okay? You are keeping someone alive. You are. It's so much work. It's trying to find, Lydia was trying to find the right doctors and then, trying to find the right diagnosis. And I think before she originally had just like an Alzheimer's dementia diagnosis, and then she found out that Dick had Lewy body dementia. And if anybody knows about Lewy body dementia, it's just a completely different disease. It's got a lot of, like sundowners and, just sometimes issues with sleep and things like that, and, hallucinations and delusions. And once she got the right diagnosis for him, things changed and really took off for them, and they took off for her. And I will say, that was really hard, and I know initially it was like, oh my gosh, am I failing? Am I not doing a really great job because this isn't working? And you're keeping someone alive who's like not your kid. And if you do have someone who is your kid, because I know some people are listening to this and they do have kids, it's just hard. You're keeping someone alive, probably over the age of 18. They're an adult. There's a lot of there aren't really as many supportive systems and structures in place, and unfortunately, I don't know why we don't have those, but I know that hopefully someone's listening to this and they're going to say, "Okay, I'm going to talk to someone," or maybe that makes someone invest more money into programs and things like that. And I noticed that there's growth and there's change and things like that. But you are doing an amazing job. And how I'll say it like this is, so especially for me, like going to work, trying to do all this stuff, and then the night before, my mom's like running away. She's in the hospital. We're doing all this stuff, and then I have to get up the next day and I have to perform. And especially in stand up, it kind of like works the same thing. You could be having like a terrible night and it doesn't matter. I need you to get up and perform because the audience is going to be able to see that. And I will say, if you're a caregiver, you are undercover, like a secret super agent. You're undercover hero, okay? You're doing an amazing job. People don't know that you're Clark Kent, but nobody knows that you're like Superman, okay, or Superwoman. Nobody knows that you're doing an amazing job at home. And I understand, because I will say it like this. For me, if I could go back in time, I would not have mentioned her diagnosis initially. I know that I mentioned it to people, but I feel like I would have been strategic as to how I told people about it, because I feel like not everybody can listen to that. And we talked about that. Like, who do you share? Who do you tell this information to? Because there will come a time where you tell people, and over time, people's like eyes will just like glaze over and they don't understand. But you're doing a great job. The levels of measurement are not the same for, just someone who's like, that's something they're not even going through. I'll say it for like the people who maybe it was COVID or something, and people would say like, I'm having like an actually like really good COVID. And then the majority of us were like, okay, I'm drowning. You're not on the same thing. That doesn't mean that it's like a better or worse, but I need you to give yourself a little bit more grace for the fact that like you're doing a really good job, and it is really, really hard to do that. And this is where you have your toolkit, and this is really what this show is about, and it's growing. But you're building your toolkit, you're finding what works for you, you're building your team, you're building your support. Maybe you're saying, hey, I have a support group is not therapy. So definitely, if you don't have a therapist, go get a therapist. They're great. Like, they're fantastic. You can kind of talk about this stuff because they can really help normalize that this isn't normal, that this isn't common, that even if you're going through all of these things, it's not common for you to be doing it alone. And it's that old adage of, it takes a village to raise a child. It does. But what happens after that child has been raised? And then what happens after that child now is starting to go back to their childlike state? and they still need that village. And unfortunately, as a society, we have slowly dismantled those things to support people. So people don't really know how to support people. And it's not necessarily like it's not like a blame game. It's just it is what it is. So this is where you start to be in community with people. And that means, you go do one thing for you. I know a lot of people who they say, I go to therapy for myself like once a week, and that's my thing for me. Or I go get my nails done, or I go do this and I go do one thing for me. You are doing an amazing job, and it is really, really hard. And your loved one, they can see that. And I'll say, I know like maybe about a year ago or something like that, my mom would say, and even, no, even like a couple weeks ago when my mom was in the hospital, she looked at me and she said, I know you love me and you take really good care of me. Even in, where she is in her phase of dementia, she can still have a moment of lucidity to say, you're doing like a really good job and you're doing a lot. And that's hard because no one really can tell you that. So I'll just say, build your team so that you can be able to sustain yourself, because unfortunately this isn't, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. It's the long game. And we all come into the support group and we unfortunately know where we're kind of, we know like kind of the ending. We don't know what's going to be in the middle, but we're here for you in the middle and the end. But especially like throughout your journey, this is where we are. You are living through the shift, or you can take off the F. That's fine. I get it. You're going through a lot, but it is so much. But I'm happy that you're here, and I want you to feel, not like I want you to feel obviously motivated, but not motivated like yay dementia, but just yay me, yay me. I'm really kicking butt right now. I'm doing a really good job. House is clean. My loved one's great. My job's okay. Whatever. Unfortunately, our jobs don't understand that. Corporations don't get it. They're gonna have to figure it out. The economy will probably collapse, and they'll be like, "Oh, we really got to help like these caregivers because they're all leaving their jobs." Over time, people will start to understand. But I just want to say you are doing such a great job, and I know that you might not say it every day. I don't say it every day. I'm just telling you that because last week I was thinking to myself, gosh, I don't have it together. I'm falling apart. I'm such a mess, and sometimes I am. Like sometimes I am. But that's really the point of this, is to let you know like you're not alone. Like you're just going through a lot of stuff right now. And it's not fair and it's not easy, and some of us are on different playing fields, but I will say that sometimes it can be easier, that if you're a little bit more flexible, if you're like, you know what, I don't really like where things are going, you can't necessarily change the disease, but you can change yourself so that you can be in the place to, be ready. So I was messaging somebody on a forum, and they were talking about, how they could see their parent declining relatively sooner than they expected. And they said, I, got my money together, I bought a house, I got everything great. And I really do think that, for me, I was like, wow, I really wish that I wasn't afraid to change, that I wasn't so inflexible, because I just felt like, okay, I can change, I can do all this other stuff for her, but for me personally, I just can't. But that would have been a really great way for me to say, what would a really nice morning for us to look like? And also understand that we have some parents who were not always the greatest parents. So sometimes they're a little bit spicy. My mom was spicy my whole life. Now she's sweet. She's definitely like a Sour Patch Kid. So perfect. But, for those of us just trying to figure out. So if you're, maybe you're in the early stages of your life, the disease, or you're seeing your parents and you're kind of like, I can kind of see what's going on. This would be a great time to just start like brainstorming and just saying, based off who they are right now, what would my life be like if I had to take on this role? And what would I do? And if you are doing it right now, you're like, oh, there's so much going on, how do I make this work or whatnot? That would be a really great time to do that. But all that to say is, even considering that, you're doing a great job. if you have any wins, share your wins with us, and then we will talk about it on the next episode, and let us know what you want to hear. We have some really awesome people coming to talk about, how it's okay to choose different housing options for your parents, and we're scheduling to have, some really great therapists and social workers to come in here and talk about it. And I'm pretty sure we're going to have a death tool before the end of the podcast. I know that's like not super exciting, but what I will say is that this whole thing has made me think about my life and what's not working, relationships that aren't working, what's not working for me, and how we feel about ourselves. So you are living through the shift, but also this is, not necessarily a toxically positive way, but just a different way to say, yeah, things really aren't great, and maybe this is the moment that I can say, okay, maybe there's some things that I can change. And that's okay, but let's not lose ourselves in the process. And you're doing a great job. And a lot of people probably don't tell you that. And people see you. You probably see someone like walking with your loved one and they just like smile and you're like, if only you knew, and they're like, oh, and they probably like infantilize the situation and like make your parents seem like they're a child, and they're not, they're an adult, and nobody sees you. Don't worry, we see you. So definitely send us your wins. We want to know what's going on. We want to know how we can help. We're still kind of trying. I'm still trying to figure out what we're going to do with this podcast, just how to really help you. I wrote 100 episodes of who I wanted to come on, and we've started to figure that out. And yeah, I think we're getting there. So please share with us your wins. Please share with us reviews, what you think of the podcast, how we can help you, what are some things that you want to see, what are some things that are working. And yeah, I hope you have a really great week.